Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well during these amazing times and these unprecedented times. My name is Tanya Darby, and I'm a trumpet player, and I also happen to be the chair of the brass department at Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm thrilled to be a part of the Monterey Jazz Festival Next Gen organization this year, and just wanted to do my part in checking in with all of you and offer support and insight in any way I can. As most of you know, I am an alumni of the Monterey Jazz Festival Next Gen organization, which back then was called the Monterey Jazz Festival All-Star Jazz Band. And thanks to all of the amazing tutelage and guidance that I had from all of our clinicians and all of our teachers, I was able to cultivate a pretty successful career as a trumpet player and as an educator. So Monterey Jazz Festival I hold very near and dear to my heart, as I'm sure all of you do as well. As far as a little bit of the background of my story, I'm sure it's not much different than all of you. I'm actually from Seaside, California, so I'm a hometown girl. And I grew up in the Monterey Jazz Festival, whether it was playing in the county all-star bands or the state all-star bands or the all-state bands. Every summer I was there at the festival going to check out my idols, really getting to hobnob with a lot of great musicians, educators, and, those people that really formed me into the musician in person that I am today. So I am forever grateful for those opportunities. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, to give a little insight on, is the concept of section playing. As a trumpet player, a lot of the work that I've ended up doing is a lot of big band work, which of course involves section playing. I play a lot of lead trumpet, but that's not all I do. A lot of what I love to do is play second and third and fourth and fifth sometimes. As a member of all state bands or like any sort of large ensemble or any sort of a large jazz ensemble, one of the skills that we're challenged with, or one of the skills that we're expected to have a grasp on at least, is the idea of section playing. And what I find is that as we get older, or as jazz starts to evolve, as big band playing becomes less common in some cases, that's a skill that students sometimes struggle with, and we tend to lose the idea of the importance of what that means. Playing in a section is a gift in itself. It's a great way to hone your skills, not only as an individual musician, but to see yourself as part of the group and to understand your individual roles inside of that group. Section playing is something that is an art that is sort of, I feel, has sort of been lost a lot of times. And when we adjudicate festivals, or when I adjudicate festivals, work with bands, either as a guest artist or doing clinics, master classes, that's one of the shortcomings that tends to come up oftentimes, is this concept of section playing, or lack thereof, how it applies to the group as a whole, and how to bring your individual musicianship to a section, because that's hugely important. All right. So typically when we think about section playing, particularly as a brass player, some of the things that come into mind are always things like cutoffs and intonation and those things, and playing together as a group. And obviously all of those things are hugely important, but we don't necessarily dig so much into the how and the why of it, particularly in the how. I'm sure we've heard tons of times, you guys just aren't playing together, you're not playing in time. But we don't necessarily dig deeper into answering the question of, okay, how do I play in time? The section's out of tune. Okay, well, how do I tune? How do I tune as a section? We're not grooving. Okay, well, how do I groove? So some of the things that we can talk about, or just some of the insights that I can give today, are just some basic elements that you can use to start to address several of those issues, right? None of these things are going to be fixed overnight, but what we always want to do is to be able to bring ourselves into a situation and walking away from that situation feeling better with how we left it. Always asking ourselves, what are we bringing to the party, right? And as a student, sometimes one of the hardest things to grasp is that a lot of those instinctual ideas that you have are exactly what the music needs, right? So as long as we're honoring the music and doing our best to honor the music, then we can't go wrong. And you're going to be surprised by the huge changes that you may see with just a little bit of effort put into some of these ideas, right? Intonation. Intonation as a whole is, it's something that's tough, you know. We have different concepts of how to work on our intonation. And intonation, you know, has different roles in different settings, right? So for instance, if I'm practicing by myself in a practice room and I'm practicing with a tuner, I get a very real-time representation of my intonation with the tuner, right? So any specific pitch, I can tell whether or not I'm in tune with the tuner with that pitch, any given moment of time, all right? When we move that concept into a large group situation, or even in a section situation, let's say, right? There is no sort of set tuner, right? And we're tuning to instruments that are constantly moving, they're constantly fluctuating, right? We all know that all of our different instruments are, our pitch is affected by tons of different elements, whether it's temperature, whether you're warmed up or not. The country that you're in can definitely play into this because different countries tune to a different pitch of A, whether it's 440 or 444. Typically, when we're in a big band situation, the fixed instrument that we're going to be tuning to is the piano. That being said, not every piano that we play with in every situation is always going to be in tune, right? So I like to think of intonation as a living, breathing, constantly fluctuating thing, right? When you're working on intonation as a section, the information that we've gotten since we started playing instruments is always follow your lead player. Listen to the lead player. Listen to the lead player for time, pitch, accuracy, articulation, all of those things, right? But sometimes we're so busy listening for what we're supposed to be in tune to that we forget the foundation of our own pitch, the pitch that we're bringing to the party, that we're bringing to the section. So my first piece of advice is when you're tuning and when you're playing in a section is to own your own pitch, regardless of where it is, right? If we come into a situation from the moment that we start the pitch and we're already fluctuating, we're already adjusting, we're not giving ourselves an accurate representation of what we need to fix, or even better yet, not need to fix. A lot of times our issues that we're having are just not just playing right down the middle of the horn. So we can get a real representation of what's happening in real time. So my first piece of advice is to own your pitch. Play right down the center of the pitch and to figure out where you are, whether you're sharp, flat, if you want to think of it in terms of colors, light and dark, because sometimes it's hard for us to hear if we're sharp or flat. The other piece of advice is to make sure you're playing in the most resonant place on your instrument, right? With brass instruments, that resonant place tends to lean a little bit on the lower side of the pitch. I'm sure we've all heard the stories of lead players playing sharp all the time, which can be very true, right? But really understand what your pitch tendencies are. Do you have the tendency to play high on the pitch? Do you have the tendency to play low on the pitch? This gives you a much wider concept of how to adjust in sort of these whole increments as opposed to individual notes. My A flat tends to be sharp flat here. My first valve D of the upper register seems to be a little flat. Our minds don't want to work that way in a live situation. I'm not thinking each note, which way each note is going to go. I'm thinking more a whole. If my pitch tends to be sharper as a whole, then I can adjust as a whole to bring everything down. And a great way to really work on individual pitch, if you are playing with a tuner, is to sort of get away from the concept of practicing intonation with a tuner and practice what I call intervallic intonation, where you play a pitch and you play notes specific intervals away and understand the relationship intonation-wise with that interval, right? If I play an F in the staff going to a C, that C is going to feel very different if I play that same C going from an E flat, or that same C going from a D, right? You dig what I'm saying? So now we're understanding the individual relationships between the pitches intervallically, not just a singular pitch, right? Another concept, just to get away from intonation a little bit, is the concept of time, right? Sometimes it's so hard to play together with each other, whether it's you're thinking in a section or whether you're thinking as a whole, as an ensemble. I can talk about this stuff all day. This could be like a 12 series masterclass, all right? But one thing that I really try to think about is to how to bring the simplest terms. What is the simplest thing I can bring to this situation to bring it closer to the way I want to sound? One key is to never rely on the people around you to play your time or your intonation for you. Piggybacking off the concept of where we're sort of programmed to constantly listen to the lead player, listen to our lead instruments for guidance, for pitch, for rhythm, for all of those things, that also puts us in a situation of reactionary playing, right? So we're reacting to what we hear around us, okay? I hear that lead player is playing a little ahead of the beat, so I'm going to now play ahead of the beat. If we're playing from a reactionary standpoint, then we're already too late, right? So again, this concept of bringing yourself to the party first, play your time, bring your identifiable time to the situation. And a lot of times, that's exactly what it needs. So if you imagine if you're in a section of 4 people that are constantly sort of tiptoeing around each other and trying to figure out the time that way, who's playing what time. Imagine if you all just come step forward, you kick down the door with your time from the beginning. And just imagine what sort of a difference that's going to make, right? Now you're playing as a whole. In those instances or those things that you may need to address, that you may need to change, you can now address them as a whole, right? So as I said, this can go on forever, and I'd love to talk to you all forever. But of course, we don't have all the time in the world. So I just really wanted to check in with you all, really give you all the best wishes in the world. I know these are difficult times that we're in. We will get through this. This too shall pass. And remember, music is healing, and we are all in a unique position to really be able to spread the message of love, wellness, togetherness at this time. And just hang in there. And congratulations to you all participating. I very much look forward to seeing you all in the future. And thank you, Monterey Jazz Festival. Take care.